May I have your attention, please? Thank you so much for joining us on Veterans Day. Please remain in attention for the presentation of colors by the Junior ROTC at Springboro High School, followed by the National Anthem by the choir, also from Springboro High School. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to introduce to you the Mayor of Springboro, Ohio, who prefers that I not go into any kind of detail about his service, but simply say that he was and is a combat wounded Marine. Ladies and gentlemen, Mayor John Agenbroad. Up here, sir, on the top step, if you would.
Good morning, everyone, and happy Veterans Day. Hey, nothing starts anything off better than the national anthem, especially when our ROTC presents the flag followed by our choir. So great job. Thank you very much. Okay. You know, a long time ago, I raised my right hand and became a United States Marine. That was a very big day for me and has been a day of my life I'll never forget. It's a day when we say thank you. Those who did not serve say thank you to those who did. Those who did serve, it doesn't make any difference what branch of service you were in. It doesn't make any difference your peacetime or war. It doesn't make any difference what your color is. It doesn't make any difference what your political affiliation is. It's a veteran is a veteran is a veteran. So we always serve under the flag, and that's what America is so great about. No matter all the challenges we have, nothing is better than the greatest country in the world, and we are blessed to be United States Americans. We are Americans. That to me means everything, day in, day out. I remember, I'll tell you a little story. I know the only thing between you and the donuts is me, so I won't keep you very long. But I got drafted in the Army, and anyway, I had 2 days to go before I was supposed to leave, and I went down. Something just told me I needed to be a Marine. I love all 5 branches of service, but I needed a swift kick in the you know what, and the Marines sort of gave it to me. So I went down, I come back home, and I'm packing to leave. My mom says, well, you got 2 more days. I can't believe you're in here packing. I said, Mom, I got 6 hours. I'm catching the bus. She says, well, where are you going? I said, I joined the Marines. She said, you did what? Have you lost your mind? Well, for the next hour, I'm packing. My mom didn't speak to me. So I finally get packed up and I'm walking. I call my buddy. I said, you're taking me to the bus station. My mom's mad at me. I'm the young kid, never been out of town before. So off I go. I get ready to go out, and my mom walks down, and I said to her, I said, Mom, I love you, and I'll see you. She said, well, we're going to the bus station. I said, you said you said that you didn't want nothing to do with me anymore. I'm your mother. I can change my mind anytime I want to. So anyway, that was a nice start to go up, and it made that airplane ride a whole lot better. Anyway, I wanted to share that thought with you just to have a little bit of humor this morning, but if you would just join me, have a moment of silence for our deceased patriots who have lost their lives and their families who have had to suffer because of it. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. God bless America. God bless you. Stay safe. Have some donuts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No problem.
Before you disperse, I would like to say a few things. First of all, I'd like to thank the trustees and members of the society who worked very hard to put this together. I'm very proud of them, and they are perhaps the best group I've ever worked with. I'd like to thank the Springboro High School Junior ROTC, future veterans. I'd like to thank the Springboro High School choir under the direction of Leslie Sharkey. I'd like to thank the Warren County Veteran Services. You probably saw at least one or two of the 3 or 4 videos that we produced for this. I'd like to thank Miami Valley Communication Council and Joe McKenzie, and most of all, the city of Springboro. Is our city manager, Chris Pizzuto, still here, back here? Thank you, sir, for all that the city has done in partnering with us on this and so many other projects. We appreciate it. I'd like to thank the mayor, and I won't talk about his career because he doesn't want me to. And finally, I'd like to thank all United States veterans for the service that they've rendered. Very nice, very much appreciated. And we have so many donuts in there that if we don't get more veterans, we're going to have some chubby veterans at the end of the day. With that, thank you, everyone. Please come in and join us.
So, started out as a lieutenant. I worked on the advanced concept ejection seat. I never ejected in it, but we were trying to make it better. So we would do rocket sled tests out in New Mexico. There's a 10-mile long track out there. They put a pile of rocket motors behind a forebody of an airplane with the ejection seat in it and a dummy, and we would just continue to try to make it safer. I got into accident investigation and mishap investigation at that point. I worked with the Israeli Air Force on a few fatalities in their F-15 fighter. So, and that was gut-wrenching. That's very, very hard. An interesting story is when I was being trained for that, you go through a lab in San Antonio. It's Kelly Air Force Base, which is now closed. But they were just walking us around, everybody in the class. We stopped at a gentleman that was, he was supposed to be trying to piece together a flight suit of a pilot that flew into a mountain at 600 knots. And in the course of doing that, he was trying to pick out human remains. So they had him in Ziploc bags all around him. And so I was kind of like flabbergasted. I'm like, oh my God, what a job. And he was sort of a weird guy, the guy in the coat. He picked up a Ziploc bag and handed it to me. He goes, what part do you think that is? And I looked at it. It looked like he would take a baseball glove, throw it in the fire for about 20 minutes, and then the palm of the glove would be all crinkled up, and it was the sole of his foot. So at that point, it was kind of like, that's how serious this business is, flight tests and make sure, the pilots can go home to their families. But that actually turned out to be Dean Paul Martin. Dean Martin, the actor, his son was in the Guard. He flew out of, I think it was George Air Force Base in a snowstorm in an F-4 fighter, and then he missed his vector and he flew right into one of the mountains, Northern California is very mountainous through that area, and just, dead on contact. So that was my first introduction to flight safety and flight tests. So I'm a graduate of the University of Cincinnati, so class of '84. And while I was in the Air Force, they paid for my master's degree in aeronautical engineering, which was great, I was a captain. My job was just to go to school. And so that worked out really well. You always hear about people, I would never let, little Johnny or Janie go join the military. I always think, you're crazy. There's so many benefits, that they're involved. You get to serve your country is probably number one. So, but after that, then I got put on flight orders. I was stationed at Eglin Air Force Base in Florida, Fort Walton Beach, and then the Gulf of Mexico is actually a big water range. They call it Whiskey 151, and we would schedule parts of it to drop bombs into the concrete-filled bombs into the Gulf, and it was kind of nice because I was on flight orders. And I would get to go in the back seat and record data. Never got sick. Got very, very disoriented. I always said that Kings Island was good test, training, right, as a kid for that. So because you get whipped around quite a bit. So anyway, when the front seater goes, hang on, they really mean it. We were doing a flight one time and there was no other F-15 in the area, so we were testing a new radar, and they were trying to detect him on the VSD, the radar scope. And the pilot, said, hang on, and he went from wings level, he went upside down, and he drove straight down toward the Gulf. And then we picked up this, looked like a little tie tack, and F-15 flew right underneath us, and then he rolled back out. But that's really something. I don't think the human body was meant to put up with that. But in later years, like I said, got a master's degree and then got into the B-2 bomber. This is a shirt I worked with South Base at Edwards Air Force Base, the old Rotc, the Right Stuff area. And so worked on that for a good 13 years. Back when I was a captain on the F-15, an additional duty was to be able to go into a war zone and perform aircraft battle damage repair. And so just the chips fell to where Desert Shield Operation Desert Shield was getting kicked off. So they sent me and our equipment and 90 people over to Al Kharj Air Base, Saudi Arabia. And then when the air war started there, we were sent into Chalil Airfield, Iraq, to recover one of their Iraqi frontline fighters. So we had to, took a K-12 saw and disassembled one of their fighters, and so that was, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm an aeronautical engineer, but you never know what you get into when you sign a dotted line. So I do remember leaving there. There were C-5s that were flying around the theater, and they told us, they said, you better, because we were from a different base than the 4th Fighter Wing that owned all the jets. They said, you better pack your stuff, get on the C-5 and go, because they're all going to be full of tanks and things. So they said, well, there's a high priority cargo on this one C-5A, get your 90 people on there and go ahead and head back to Georgia. And so we went in there. There were 2 coffins strapped to the floor of the C-5 of 2 majors that flew a helicopter into a transmission tower in northern Saudi. So that brought it all home to us. So that was tough. And they went into Dover, where people that die are repatriated, and we got to watch the ceremony when they took the coffins off the airplane, and they flew us into Robins Air Force Base, Georgia. So that'll stick in my head, right? Because that's tough. That's somebody's daughter, somebody's mother, son, daughter, and so that was really. I'm trying to keep my composure talking about it. So that was the thing that really sticks in my head quite a bit. I think it was just a variety of ways people serve. I look at our mayor. It was just a pleasure to meet some of the fellow veterans that I'd seen around town, but did not know, that they were, career Marine Corps or Army. So, but it's just a reminder, that freedom's not free, as they say. So. I've been through Arlington, and I recommend, I think every person in school should go to Arlington and really understand where they came from, So their right of free speech, all that stems from, from people that have sacrificed for them. So this is funny because at UC, the way the engineering curriculum works is you're supposed to get good 3-4 quarters of engineering school under you, and then you start what's called co-oping. So every other quarter, they call it interning as well. You go work for some company. I actually worked for General Motors up to my senior year, my dad had died in '82, my pre-junior year, and all of a sudden I'm like, boy, when senior year rolls around, I didn't want to take a dime from my mom because he didn't have good life insurance. But so there was a recruiter running around campus. This is back in '83. This is Reagan's first term. They're still trying to rebuild from the '70s. We had a hollow military at that time. And so I'm like, yeah, they offered to make me an E3 for 12 months, just in the system. So I had a red sticker on my old Pontiac. I got the paychecks. I paid for all 3 quarters of my senior year and graduated and didn't take a dime from my mom. I'm always grateful to the Air Force. But I owed them 4 years. So I did 4, and I thought, well, this is kind of fun. I'm going to stick around a bit. So I did 21 in total. Yeah. And I had so much fun. I did another 17 years as a contractor at Wright Pat, so I'm permanently retired, yeah. Retired. So it's like 38 years, it's like, wow, goes by really quick. So I always like to joke when I look in the mirror, I see Keith Richards looking back at me. But yeah, you're like, no. I think this is the first time I've ever been in a town or community that really recognized, Veterans Day in this manner, you know what I mean? And so that really is, I'm very humbled by that. I know a lot of the gentlemen that were out there as well, or feel the same way. So that's all. I think as long as our country continues to value people that, particularly ones gave the ultimate sacrifice, I think the U.S. is still, a great country. I just think that, there's just a lot of ways to serve, people less fortunate in this country. And so anyway, the military's not for everybody, but it certainly created a lot of opportunities for me, So for that, I'll be forever grateful.
Started out as a Titan II missile launch officer in Arkansas. That was part of the nuclear retaliatory force. And then from there, because I had a business degree, I transitioned into major weapon system acquisition. At the end of my career, I was a contracting officer. So I was involved in buying airplanes, jet engines, missiles, and ended up in the Dayton area. Had a 5-year assignment teaching contracting and accounting at the Air Force Institute of Technology. Never made it overseas. That wasn't intentional. It just kind of happened that way because my first assignment as a Titan II launch officer, there was a list of countries I wasn't allowed to go to because of what I knew. But, oh gee, where did the Air Force send me? Shepherd Air Force Base, Wichita Falls, Texas, Vandenberg Air Force Base in California, Little Rock Air Force Base. And then when I transitioned into major weapon system acquisition, I spent, frankly, more time in contractor plants than I did on Air Force bases. So downtown Philadelphia, St. Louis, what's now the Boeing plant. It was McDonnell Douglas back then. I was assigned there for a while. Wright-Patterson, of course, and then the GE engine plant down at Evendale, Ohio. So those were the major full-time assignments. Well, a lot of it begins with the time as a missile launch officer. The indoctrination, working with nuclear weapons, emergency war orders, the integrated operations plan with aircraft, missiles, submarines. There was a good orientation to operations, which really helped me when I got into more of the administrative side of things. Because a lot of folks didn't have that experience, and things would come up that they didn't think was important, but having been in the field, it's like, wait a minute, we need to pay attention to this. And that helped me as a contracting officer too. I was commissioned through the Air Force ROTC program at Bowling Green State University, so I went in as a second lieutenant, brown bar, as they used to call us. And I was a major when I retired. That was a great assignment. I spent a lot of time teaching continuing education courses on government contracting, cost price analysis, overhead cost analysis, post-award administration of contracts, and also got to teach introduction to accounting to the graduate students. Eventually, after I had left that assignment, Department of Defense reorganized their training So they now have Defense Acquisition University, which handles the, we'll call short courses, continuing ed type courses. So most of what I did would have been over there. And then after I retired, I ended up going to work for a company that cleaned up old nuclear weapon sites. So I started out my career working with nuclear weapons, and here I am toward the end of my career. I'm semi-retired now, and I'm working on the decontamination and decommissioning of parts of the old nuclear weapons complex. I was on call this morning to the gaseous diffusion plant in Piketon, Ohio, on some of the activities down there that are involved in cleaning up the site and shutting it down. I thought it was kind of cool. You know, you start out with nuclear weapons, at the end of the career, helping shut down the complex that we don't need anymore. Well, I met my wife here. She's a physician, so that's frankly how I ended up finagling an assignment all the way from Wright-Patterson down to Cincinnati so I could stay in the area. No, it was a great 20 years. I'd do it again in a heartbeat. And the opportunity to do so many different things. You know, I don't think I've had those kind of opportunities in civilian career. It's come to me more over the years. And being around organizations like American Legion and some of the other groups, you know, there aren't very many World War II vets left. And occasionally I'll run into somebody who is a Korean War vet. And then there's a whole bunch of Vietnam guys. But the problem with those Vietnam guys is they're starting to look old. I don't know what's wrong with them. But when people say, well, what'd you do during the Vietnam War? I spent the Vietnam War in a missile silo under Arkansas. So, you know, my brother and my uncle were both in Vietnam. You know, a couple of the projects I worked on around nuclear sites, I got connected with the American Legion posts in the area. So I got to hang out there. You know, there is no post here in Springboro, and I heard the one in Franklin just is in the process of shutting down, so I haven't been real involved, but you know, there's a lot of retired military in the area. Got several at our church, you know, the United Methodist Church over here on North Street. So working with them on church projects and other things, there's a certain recognition, a certain respect and trust that tends to exist with, you know, especially the career retirees. You know, they're the kind of folks that when they have a job, they don't say, well, what time do we leave today? They just tend to stay until the job's done. It's just kind of an outlook, values that you know, military seems to bring to a lot of people. Well, launching nuclear weapons is not really translatable to civilian life, but especially the business skills. It's things I learned as a young captain on manufacturing processes, contracting processes, government contracting. I'm still relying on that today. That's why I was talking to the folks down at the Portsmouth Gaseous Diffusion Plant earlier today. Was to work on some issues that came up during a government audit. So I'm still using that skill set. If your kids decide they want to give it a try, encourage them to do it. Yeah, it was the smartest thing. One of the smartest things I've done was join the ROTC when I was in college, and frankly, that was a big part of what helped get me through college, as being part of the ROTC and then the experience with the Air Force. Like I said, I'd do it again in a heartbeat.